Yep.
All right. Thank you everyone for being here this evening for this special opportunity to learn about safety on Elton Hills Drive. My name is Michael Wojak. I am the Executive Director of the Bicycle Alliance of Minnesota, and I also serve on a group called the Advisory Council for Traffic Safety in Minnesota. And our goal is to get a number of roadway fatalities in the state of Minnesota down to zero. Currently, it's about 400 per year, and it's been stubbornly persistent at that level. So we partner with a lot of different organizations and try to focus on ways that we can make our roadways safer for all users. As part of Bike MN, We Bike Rochester is one of our many chapters around the state, and we thank Aaron for being here and recording this for our internet audience as well. We Bike Rochester is very active in the community and always welcoming folks to participate in the rides or participate in some of their other activities. The Bicycle Alliance of Minnesota is a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and basically what that means is we focus principally on education advocacy, but we don't get into politics. We're a nonpartisan organization that way. We really care about policy, and part of that mission is doing things like this. When there's a topic of interest in the community, we can try to get some experts to come together and talk about how these issues impact the community and what things we might be able to work together on in the future. A key part of doing this is understanding and thanking the panelists for their time, because there's other things they could be doing. This is a pretty nice day and could be doing a lot of fun stuff outside, but they're choosing to be here with you. They all have different professions within the community, and I will let them introduce themselves, but also they're here speaking on behalf of themselves and not necessarily their employer. So we do appreciate that. We're gonna do a presentation, have some Q&A, and at the end we should have some time for questions. So go ahead and just be thinking about your questions, write them down. And you know, I want to emphasize again, this is not an advocacy event. We're not trying to necessarily prescribe an answer. What we are looking to do is have a serious conversation about what the current situation is with safety and what options are there in the future. So thank you for taking the time to be here. I hope you find this informative, and I'm going to hand the microphone off to our panelists and let them introduce themselves. But real quick, we have Sam Bazzina, who's the Rochester traffic engineer. Is that your official title? No?
I go by that, yeah.
Okay, we'll take it. We have Steve Willman, who's the principal at Elton Hills Elementary, and Alex Langshan, who's here at 125 Live, but also a person who lives in the neighborhood. I'm going to let them introduce themselves, and then we'll jump into some additional materials.
I'm Steve Willman, principal at Elton Hills Elementary School. I've been there for 6 years. I've been in multiple other places as well, and really love education, love working with children, love working with adults, and making sure that we have the best education we possibly can for our kids and our future.
All right, hi everyone. My name is Alex Langshan, and I'm actually relatively new to Rochester. Originally from St. Peter, went to college in Marshall, lived in Mankato for about 10 years. Met my husband here in Rochester, and have lived here for about 3 years. In the transition of moving to a new town, I was looking for a new job, and we found a house just up off of Valkyrie Drive. Kind of, you know, you can see Assisi Heights from our front yard, and just started looking around, and it was like, well, this place looks kind of cool, 125 Live, and if you're not familiar with it, it's an awesome place. So there's my plug for 125 Live. And in just kind of looking around is like, well, I could bike to work, and I thought that was a huge pro, something that not a lot of people have the luxury to do. So I'm happy to share my thoughts as to what it looks like to bike to 125 Live, but even beyond that too, and just being an active member of the community.
Hi everyone, Sam Bazzina. So officially my title is Traffic Engineering and Operations Manager with the City of Rochester Public Works Department. Legally, there are certain authorities granted to the city traffic engineer, so that is me. I am also our city traffic engineer, and I typically use that title. So yeah, we're here tonight to talk about Elton Hills, and it's a city-led project. We have a mill and overlay project coming up, so it's planned for 2027. I'm going to give a short presentation and just give a little bit of background here. So all the way back in 2012, we adopted our Rochester Area Bicycle Master Plan. That was actually adopted by our joint city-county planning department at the time. And that document identified Elton Hills as a major city bikeway for future planning purposes. So in 2016, that was the first time that we were ready to do our mill and overlay project. We went to city council with a pavement marking plan. Because
Could
once
you
we,
put the microphone a little closer to your mouth?
once we,
Yes,
That's better.
Thank you.
when we mill off all the pavement, right, then we're left with a blank slate as far as the pavement markings go. So we submitted the pavement marking plan to city council. It got pulled from the plan. Elton Hills did specifically. It covered several corridors. The other corridors moved forward. Elton Hills was denied. So we deferred the maintenance. We did not do a mill and overlay. In 2019,
What does pavement marking mean?
so the pavement marking means any of the striping out there. So the white and yellow lines, the arrows, bike lane markings, crosswalk markings, those are all pavement markings.
Okay, thank you.
So in 2019, there was a council initiated action, so 2 council members brought this forward and it was approved. They said that they wanted to go ahead and move forward with the 2016 recommendation. So now I started working with the city in 2017. And I didn't know what was actually recommended in 2016. So I looked it up and I was like, I don't agree with that plan. I didn't really think it was a very good idea. So we went back to city council and said, we really think you should do a traffic study, come up with a better plan, do some public engagement, get input from people in the community, and then let's come back with an actual engineered solution. That was presented to city council at a study session. They did not take any action on it. So basically just no action taken. So again, we deferred our pavement maintenance project. So since then, in 2022, the city adopted their active transportation plan, and that was just the city, not the city-county, because we now have our own planning department. Within that plan, Elton Hills Drive was identified as a top 10 all ages and abilities network near-term gap. So
What does that mean?
So it's identified for a
Sam,
future.
would you repeat the question too?
Yeah, so what does that mean? An all ages and abilities facility is something designed for anyone to use that would be comfortable using it. So, and we're not talking 0 to 120 years old. We're typically planning for 8 to 80. So an 8-year-old would feel comfortable on it, and an 80-year-old would also feel comfortable on it. Parents would feel comfortable letting their 8-year-old use it. And so a near-term gap is something that the plan identified that could be easily done through pavement marking changes. So yeah, that was adopted in 2022. So what we have planned now in 2027, we have to do the pavement maintenance now. If you've driven down it lately, it is very cracked. It's time to do it. We can't defer it much longer. So this has come back up again. We recommended to city council, like, hey, let's do another traffic study. We're gonna bring this back and ask you to vote on a plan to move forward with. So that traffic study is currently in progress. So the existing conditions, it's a 4-lane undivided road. It's got parking lanes on both sides. The parking lanes don't actually have the white line delineating it, but for visual purposes. And this is mostly, west of the river. Once you get down to this end near 125 Live, there's no on-street parking, so it's a little bit different. But for the most part, 4-lane undivided with parking on both sides. Now back in 2016, what Public Works had brought to City Council was, well, let's just install no parking signs all the way on both sides of the corridor. We're just gonna mark bike lanes, and that's it. That's all they were gonna do. No public engagement. They didn't ask anybody about it. So obviously council pulled that out, and so they didn't like that plan. And like I mentioned earlier, when it came back in 2019, I looked at it and I didn't really like it either. So in 2019, we did our study. Our recommendation that we presented to council was a 3-lane section with parking on the south side of the street, on-street bike lanes on both sides. So, like I said, the feedback at the study session wasn't real great, so it didn't move forward. One thing that did come out of that was we did program a future CIP project to improve the intersection at West River Parkway. So that was budgeted in our 6-year CIP plan back then, which landed in 2027, so it actually lines up now with our new mill and overlay project. So we're gonna do it all at the same time. So our mill and overlay of the corridor with a larger intersection improvement project at West River Parkway will all be planned for 2027. And again, we're still studying what exactly that will be. So for city goals, what we're looking to do with this project, like I said, primarily it's a pavement preservation project. It's a mill and overlay. It's all the way from Broadway, where we just reconstructed here in the last couple of years, or it's still ongoing, all the way west until you get about 500 feet east of a CC Drive. So not quite to the highway. So whatever we end up with, there will be a transition point where we transition back into what is the existing interchange of Highway 52. So another goal for us, as always, we want to increase safety for all of our roadway users, not just drivers, not just bikes, and not just pedestrians, but for everybody that's using the corridor. And we can do that, reduce crash severity, and reduce speeding is a primary way that we can increase safety. Slower speeds, crashes are less likely to happen in the first place, and when they do happen, they're going to be less severe than if they happen at a higher speed. Another goal is to meet our city's traffic service standards. So I said we do have a traffic study in progress, so we're looking at queuing, delay. We don't want it to take 15 minutes to drive from Broadway to Highway 52. We do have standards for that. We don't just want to go out and create a bunch of congestion. And then another last goal there is alignment with a lot of our city planning documents. And I'm just going to touch on a couple of those. So Rochester Olmsted Council of Governments, ROCOG, is our local MPO, our Metropolitan Planning Organization that does all of our long-range planning for all of our major roadways in all of Olmsted County. And Elton Hills is one of those streets. So they did this Safe Streets for All Safety Action Plan. They identified Elton Hills as number 3 on their list of Tier 1 priority corridors in Rochester. So to be a Tier 1 priority corridor in Rochester, you got to meet these 3 categories. So it's based on our high injury network, which is where crashes have been occurring. So there's a history of crashes in the street that meets a certain threshold that puts them in this category. Crash profiles. So there's risk factors present. So Elton Hills, the design of Elton Hills currently, it shares a lot of features with other roadways where a lot of serious injury crashes are happening. I can tell you that the current design of Elton Hills, that's just not how we design roads anymore. If we were going to redesign it from scratch, it would not look like it does today. And then the third category, when ROCOG did their public outreach, they had a comment map, and a lot of people clicked on Elton Hills and they put a comment saying they don't feel comfortable on Elton Hills. They are concerned about safety on Elton Hills. So it met all 3 of their criteria, and they listed as a Tier 1 priority corridor. I say it's number 3. Number 1 on their list was 55th Street Northwest. Number 2 was 37th Street Northwest. And then Elton Hills. Another plan that's going to be important to discuss is our active transportation plan that I mentioned earlier. I talked about our all ages and abilities network near-term gap. This talks a little bit more on the slide about what the AAA network is supposed to be for. I'm not going to read that to you. I kind of talked about it a little bit, but yeah, it identified 10 bulleted, not in any specific priority order, 10 corridors. Elton Hills was one of them. And then other planning documents that we're going to be reviewing through this process are ROCOG's 2050 Metropolitan Transportation Plan. That's our long-range plan for the entire county. Since 2019, we've updated our comprehensive plan. Rochester Public Schools recently published their elementary safe routes to school plan. Hopefully Steve can help me talk about that a little bit today. We want to align with that. Then we have a complete streets policy, which means that we have to consider all modes on every street. It doesn't mean that we have to accommodate every mode on every road, but we do have to at least consider them. And then we're also working on updating our ADA transition plan. So also through this process and with a adjacent project, we do have a plan to come through and upgrade a lot of the ADA ramps in the neighborhood as well. And that's my presentation. I'll hand it back to Michael.
All right, I appreciate the background. It does get to a point where if you keep delaying, eventually the pavement gets so bad that you just get to the point where you gotta do something. So we're kind of at that, what we're gonna figure out what we're gonna do. So I've got a few questions that we've put together in advance here and, covering a broad set of areas. But first of all, Principal Willman, I'd like to ask you to maybe talk about how the current design of Elton Hills Drive affects the ability of kids to bike and walk to school, or the willingness to even allow them to do so, and any stories that you've heard from families that you care to share.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Elton Hills is a very busy road with high speeds, and people not necessarily adhering to the speed limit to the level that we would prefer. We get often concerns even from our parents about our own parents coming into the schools, and I address that with individuals in the parking lot line. So it kind of does divide us for our area, and we have kind of the north side and the south side, and everything filters through the one stoplight that's right outside of Elton Hills. So safety is a real high priority. We have to talk about it constantly. We're obviously concerned about students that maybe just become dysregulated and take off outside of the building, and obviously Elton Hills is not a real safe place to go. And so we have plans for that, and we understand that that's a high priority for our families and our communities. Luckily, that happens once in maybe in every 10 years, but we have to make sure we account for it. Biking really from our parents on Elton Hills is a no. That is not allowed or acceptable from the parents that we talk about. So then we're on sidewalks, which create a little bit more of a hassle when we get to things like pedestrians. We have had some pedestrian bike accidents that definitely causes some injuries and some obviously bad feelings around what's happening. So those are some of the impacts. We do have some tight, as far as safe routes go, Cascade and is it 18th that goes up to JA. It's just, those are the way I go with things like that. We have a crosswalk there. We have a crosswalk right at the light to ensure that people stop, because it comes over the hill, and that's obviously a concern for us, but it's also the best place for our parents to drop off. They drop off across the street, they walk their kids across, and we say good morning and everything like that, and the high fives and hugs and all that stuff. So it's definitely a concern for us, and so we coach and talk about it, and we make sure that we try to support our kids and our families through that.
And maybe a bit of a follow-on question too, in your role as an educator, do you feel that it's worthwhile or beneficial to have most kids be able to bike and walk to school if they so desire?
Absolutely. It eliminates even car pedestrian concerns in the parking lots and things like that. So definitely we would love to have more people walk and bike. We are a neighborhood school. And like I was talking to some of the folks that were here, we really pride ourselves on being a tight-knit community of learners and families that show up for our events, and we really want them to be coming in safely through pedestrian walkways and any way they can bike. But right now we're kind of on sidewalks.
Thank you for that. Next question for Alex. Could you describe what it's like to be a user of the corridor, either bicycling or even in an automobile? And how do you feel that the design of Elton Hills Drive is safe for you in either circumstance?
Sure. Well, thank you for the question. And again, just having lived in Rochester for about 3 years and in the neighborhood for about 2 years, I use Elton Hills Drive every day unless I don't leave the house. So whether that be walking, biking, or driving, I'm on that road just about every day. And what I love the most about where we're located is that you can get, wherever you need to be. Hy-Vee's nearby. Well, you could go to either Hy-Vee, really. You know, we like to bike to Little Thistle. We like to bike to Forager. I mean, we really are in, I would say, the city center, if you just want to exclude downtown, which I try to avoid most days. And, you know, I knew pretty early on that, like, this is a dangerous street. It's a big street. It has so much on it. How many schools? You know, you can keep going even past the highway, and it's a whole nother, you know, neighborhood, you know, down near Costco. So you can get just about anywhere you need to off of this road. So it's vital that we, you know, put some attention to it, because whether I'm walking, biking, or driving, there are moments, not every day, but a lot of days where it's like, gosh, that was close, or I had someone ride my tail, you know, when I was driving, and there's no protected turn lane, so I feel like, you know, there's pressure coming from me from behind, and then, you know, you really, as you pull into the neighborhood, you know, there's some tight turns that you have to make. So there's so many different factors, and I kind of, you know, I sympathize with the people that live on Elton Hills Drive, because I see those cars try to back out of their driveway, and it terrifies me, because, you know, I have a hard time just getting in and out of my driveway, but you know, I can't be the only one. It's kind of where I got to when I started really, you know, seeing for what it is. There's got to be more people out there that are concerned about this. So that's why I got involved, because I think that we're at a really cool opportunity to share that feedback and input, and make it for a safer route for everybody.
All right. So I think that our ability to get funding from the Rochester downtown people is probably gone now, but appreciate that.
Oh.
We as the Bicycle Alliance of Minnesota do not recommend avoiding downtown.
Oh, well, I love going downtown.
Everyone loves going downtown, it's fantastic. But you bring up some very good safety concerns as well. Sam, some questions for you. I was wondering if you could speak to, and I'll try to leave this open-ended so you can answer as you feel best, but the current design of Elton Hills Drive, how does that impact safety? How does it impact vehicle speeds, number of crashes, and the ability of other users to use the corridor? And it could be about Elton Hills Drive, but really we're talking about any sort of a 4-lane undivided roadway.
Yeah, thanks. So 4-lane undivided streets, you know, they don't have left turn lanes. So anybody who wants to turn left, if they're stopping in the left-hand lane, if somebody's across from them that also wants to turn left, then they're offset to the left side, you know, and then it becomes hard to see oncoming traffic in that outside lane. Plus, the people coming up behind them are going to want to switch lanes because they don't want to wait. So there's a lot of lane changes, a lot of sightline obstructions, you know, and then having multiple lanes in one direction as far as pedestrians crossing the street, that can create a multi-lane threat where, you know, one car might stop for a pedestrian, the car in the other lane, well, you know, I don't know why that car stopped, but I'm gonna keep going. And then the pedestrian walks out in front of them. So when we talk about like a potential of 4-to-3 conversion, right, we would add a center turn lane. So that puts everybody going in the same direction in one lane. There are so many driveways and cross streets on Elton Hills Drive. Like there's clearly a demand for left turns because there are just so many places to turn left. So if we can get people out of the way of through traffic, you know, that prevents all the lane changing and weaving around. It also creates opportunities where we can create pedestrian refuge islands in the middle of the street and really enhance the crossing for pedestrians across Elton Hills Drive. Yeah, I think those are the biggest safety features of that sort of potential conversion. On the downside of the existing 4-lane undivided, and like I said, we just don't design streets like that anymore.
And I appreciated before we started, Principal Willman assured me that he in fact does teach the law that everything on the internet is required to be true.
Yeah, yeah.
But some people still do not follow that. And I know that anytime you're talking about change on a roadway, there's always a strong opinion. I know from my city council days that I worked for 120,000 different traffic engineers in the city of Rochester because everybody knew how to design the roads. But I am interested in particular, and if you don't have the exact figures, certainly understand that, but could you maybe, Sam, speak to the amount of lanes that are required for different amounts of traffic, a 2-lane roadway, 3-lane roadway, 4-lane roadway, how many vehicles can they reasonably accommodate relative to how many vehicles do we see on Elton Hills Drive? And then also, what are we seeing on Elton Hills Drive in terms of the traffic volumes today, and is it going up or going down?
Well, as far as, how much traffic a lane can accommodate, I mean, it really depends on the context. Obviously, a lane on Highway 52 can accommodate a lot more traffic than Elton Hills Drive. A lane on Elton Hills Drive, just because there's no cross traffic. So for a 3-lane section, I can tell you it can handle up to 20,000 cars a day, no problem. Above that, we probably want to study it a little more closely. Elton Hills, with our 20-year projections, we're anticipating around 12,000 cars a day. So, from a planning lens, I would have no concerns with a 3-lane section on Elton Hills. But we're still doing the traffic study. We're still looking closely at it. Because again, there is a lot of cross traffic. So we do need to consider that. But when we studied it in 2019, we showed that it would meet our traffic service standards back then. And since COVID and everything has happened, people are working from home. I do know that more kids are still being driven to school than riding the bus. But even with that, there's still fewer cars on Elton Hills today than there was in 2019. So I have really no concerns with whether a 3-lane section will work. But again, I'm still reviewing the traffic study, so we're still going to do our due diligence with that. But my judgment tells me that it would work just fine.
So I read in the Facebook comment section that this project was only being done because of the all-powerful bicycle lobby. And, curious, you spoke a little bit to the need of this, but do projects typically get done just to accommodate bicycle pedestrian safety, or is it usually something else that's driving the decision of when and how to do a project?
Yeah, I mentioned in my presentation here, this is primarily a pavement maintenance project. So we need to do the mill and overlay. It is not being driven by the need for bicycle facilities. I really, as we move through this process of engagement and decision-making, I want to separate out the number of lanes and the lane configuration from whether or not there's a bicycle facility in there. So I think it's two separate topics. I don't want to reduce the number of lanes just to get a bicycle facility on there. Again, the bicycle facility is in alignment with our active transportation plan, but it's not a complete reconstruction. It's not something that we have to do. City council can make any decision that they want to make. But no, it's not being driven just by the need for bicycle facilities. I'll say a lot of the lane reconfiguration projects we've done in the past they've come as a result of a mill and overlay project where we have a blank slate to work with, and we look at how many lanes do we actually need out there. So I think that's pretty common, but that's not what's driving the need for this.
Question for you, Alex. One of the points that are often made is, why would you even put bicycle infrastructure in a location? What is it actually connecting, who's going to use it. So as somebody who lives and works in the area, could you maybe speak to what, if there was a trail connection created along, some sort of bicycle connection along Elton Hills Drive, what are the different things that could possibly connect?
Oh, yeah, well, I think you bring up an interesting point. Maybe it's just the society that we live in where everyone's so polarized. And I read the comment section too. I don't comment.
Don't do that.
But you know, how decisive a bike lane can be for some people. I mean, it's almost like you're trying to, you know, it couldn't be anything more heinous than that. I mean, it's just like, it's a great thing for a community. Coming from a town like St. Peter, there were no bike lanes. I mean, granted, that was years ago. Mankato had excellent bike infrastructure from what I thought when I was there. Moving to Rochester, there's a lot of great biking opportunities, and I actually love that about Rochester. Both my husband and I love that about Rochester. You don't see that very often. I think that we're unique in Minnesota, that we prioritize our physical fitness and our health. And I think by putting a bike lane somewhere means that people will use it. If there is not one, then obviously people aren't gonna do it. I'm not gonna bike on the street. Like, that is just dangerous. I'm not gonna risk my life to come to work. I'll bike on the sidewalk. Now, if you do that, that's a huge faux pas for a lot of people, but I quite frankly don't have another option that I feel comfortable doing. So it's kind of like the field of dreams, right? Build it and they'll come. I strongly believe in that, and I think that more people will utilize it. That's my own perspective. I don't think that I'm right about everything. I know I will use it, and I know that my neighbors will use it. I know that there are members here that will likely use it. And I think that that's what builds a better community, is people staying active, people getting out of their cars, taking the long way home. There's a lot of beauty to that, and that's, like I said, I think what builds a really strong community.
Can I interject a question here? Do you think the parents would be comfortable with a bike lane on Elton Hills Drive,
Ooh.
letting the kids ride their bikes in the lane?
I like that question, but we're gonna answer that question, but we'll go through these first, because I think that's a very good question and it should be answered. So Principal Willman, thank you for being here. There are actually 4 schools that are along this corridor. There's 2 public elementary schools. There's the Lutheran school, and then just across Broadway, there's also the Kellogg Middle School, and then John Adams is not too terribly far off this corridor. Speaking as an educator, do you see potentially, if there was a safe bikeway, seeing it integrated in your FIED or activities programming, where maybe kids have opportunities to go to different parks or Quarry Hill or something on a safe route?
I mean, I think we would normally probably have busing for that to make it a little bit more safe, but I know we have events that go out and about, and obviously it's not an option at this time. It would have to be really explored, and you know, I'm relatively conservative when it comes to the safety of my children, and I've got several 10,000 of them probably at this point with my 33 years. So it's, I'd be pretty conservative on that one, but it is, did we walk around and teach our kids about safe routes and how to cross and all that stuff? Yeah, we did, with the help of Safe Routes to Schools. So we were able to teach our kids how to walk across carefully, how to walk on a sidewalk, how to look both ways. I mean, those are all the skills that are really important. Could we do that? Yeah, I think it could be part of a program if we made it 100% safe, and that's gonna be the, you know, the job of the engineers and the people that are out there looking at it every day and making decisions on that.
Blame Sam, got it. And actually,
Encourage you.
a little bit impromptu here, Sam, but could you potentially look up find a cross-section or picture of Bryant Avenue, maybe to show that as one of the possible options? And I bring that up because the city of Rochester has a pedestrian and bicycle advisory committee as well, and they received the same presentation and they've weighed in as well. And this is an opportunity, if you care about these issues, there's a lot of times seats on these boards and commissions that are available. And they've, one of the comments that they brought up is that this particular, example that already exists in Minnesota is something that, can be done in conjunction with a roadway, but tends to feel much safer. And as Sam is, bringing this up, one of my favorite questions to ask everyone, and we'll start with you, Principal Willman. If you were dictator for a day, only a day, and you could wave a magic wand or redesign Elton Hills to the benefit of the families that you serve, what kind of things would you be looking to accomplish on the roadway?
Really safe speeds, accommodating our families that live on the street so they can get out safely, and a way to get in and out of the parking lot safely, carefully, a way for our kids to cross safely at multiple locations, and our kids to be able to bike to school would be wonderful. You know, that's a tall order. So those are kind of the wish lists. As far as, I'm not an engineer to be able to answer that question about what it would look like, but those are the things so that we could have kids feel comfortable crossing the street. I know in the old days, they did apparently drop kids off at that door 8 on Elton Hills Drive. And there's no way at this time, like when I heard that, I was like, something definitely must have changed over the course of the years. But we bring them around the side. That's not necessarily a wish list I have. I think we're pretty safe where we're at right now. But you know, it tells you a little bit about the evolution of the times.
All right, and Alex, same question for you. You and your husband live in the corridor, and you obviously use it quite a bit. What would be an ideal corridor serving all the different users in your opinion?
Yeah, that's a good question. Again, not being an engineer, but understanding enough about what a safe road would look like. You know, I think what Sam presented, a middle turn lane seems essential if you ask me, just with all the turns that are, you know, taking place, having a little bit of a respite, possibly for people crossing the street. I mean, unless you go to a stop light, it's really hard to walk across that street at any point in the day, just with people going sometimes 35, 40 miles an hour. You know, those speed lights don't stop a lot of people. But I think, you know, having a bike lane, wider sidewalks would be helpful just for the foot traffic or the bike traffic. I even, you know, I biked here today. There's scooter traffic out there too. There's stroller traffic. There's people walking their dogs, and there's just not a lot of room on those sidewalks for more than one person going in one direction. So again, this isn't just a bike thing for me personally. I think this is just a general overall wellness of the community on both sides of Elton Hills Drive, and us that live kind of up in the, you know, on the hillside. You know, again, like I said earlier, we sympathize with the people that are on that street, so we want to see it safer for them too. I would, again, be willing to have conversations or just hear their perspectives, because I think they're the ones at the end of the day that, you know, are really the most important voices to hear what some of their concerns are. So yeah, you know, maybe make the whole street a bike lane, I don't know. But I think that there is an opportunity for something really cool to happen, and I'm excited about it.
And Sam, I don't know if you're having any success, but did you find something?
I think so.
Okay, and part of that, I'm kind of leading into the question that we heard earlier that we can answer about which parents feel safe. Before we jump to that, since you are the traffic engineer, I won't tell you how you would design it, because that would be kind of a conflict of interest with literally what your position is. But one thing that I often hear frequently too is concern about having parking on Elton Hills Drive. And I want to ask you if any of these proposed changes necessarily require the elimination of parking on Elton Hills Drive. Pass this time.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm having some difficulties getting that pulled up. So I know within the traffic study, there's and what was presented to the pedestrian bicycle advisory committee as well, is a lot of different cross sections. Some 3-lane sections, some 4-lane sections, some with no parking, some with parking on both sides, and some with just parking on one side. You know, if we go back to our 2019 recommendation, which is parking on one side, you know, even back then, you know, because that was right around the time we implemented our seasonal parking restrictions. So if you have only parking on one side of the street, then you don't have to move your car to the other side of the street every day. And with a street like Elton Hills, you know, I don't know how many people are doing that, how many people feel comfortable doing that in the current configuration. But if we did, you know, hypothetically have parking on one side and a bike facility on the other side, then you could just always park the car on that one side of the street. Plus, what I mentioned earlier about when you do need to cross the street, it would be a lot more comfortable in that situation. So that is, you know, one of the potential ideas that's being reviewed.
All right. Thank you for being patient. I know you probably have a bunch of questions, and I'm gonna pass the microphone. If you have a question, just raise your hand, or you're wondering about more information, and then just give us your first name and what your question is, and we'll do our best to see if we can get you an answer.
My name is Louise,
A little closer.
and my question was, if there is a bike lane on Elton Hills Drive, you know, it's like you have parking and then the lane in the middle, would the parents want their kids on a lane like that where somebody who's parked can open their car door and have the kid run into the car door? Or will they be comfortable using a lane that is in conjunction with a parked car on that, do you think?
I think it'd be tough to call, but no, I'd probably say that opening doors and things like that would be pretty complicated.
See if you can project this one.
I mean, I grew up with that, but that's a different world.
We're gonna answer her question first. We needed the microphone too.
Oh, absolutely, sorry about that.
Yeah, no, it's and
Yeah, I think it'd have to be, I mean, safety would have to be number one for me, and I'm sure that would be for the parents as well. So how it would look, what would it be, what would be the boundary between the cars and the bike lane, what would be the bike lane to the side streets and the curbs and everything, and the crosswalks. So it's a tough question to answer. If it's on the same side as the parking, I think it'd be a little complicated. You know, it all depends, you know, because then you've got cars pulling out in front, you've got cars opening doors. But once again, that's not my expertise necessarily. And I mean, I'm a parent, so I've got that thought. So probably it'd be a little tougher for that operation. Or configuration, my apologies.
And what I would specifically add is that paint isn't infrastructure. Paint doesn't make people safe. And for a long time, that's what we did, is we painted lanes. And there are just so many better approaches that can be done. And if you do them at the same time you're doing road projects, they're not necessarily a lot more expensive. Eventually we'll get an image up here of an example in the Twin Cities. And so I very much agree with what, you know, the skepticism and what Principal Willman said, that if it doesn't feel safe, families aren't gonna do it. But is there a way to build things that accommodate these users that actually people will feel safe using? And I believe the answer to that is yes, and we're gonna, you wanna zoom in on that top picture? There we go. This is a recently reconstructed road in Minneapolis. This is Bryant Avenue. And what you can see is you have the bike lane behind the curb. And just as you asked the question about would parents feel comfortable riding in traffic, would you feel more comfortable riding with this or having kids ride with this?
North Broadway is like this, and it's great.
And we-
Part.
And we will give you permission to leave your seat for this one, Principal
Thank you.
Willman.
I'm dying to know what it looks like.
Oh,
go ahead.
I'll get you your hall pass.
No, something like that, they would be probably very comfortable with. I think it'd be, like I said, there's the boundary there, there's the paths, we could even have a right and left lane, north, south, east, west, whatever you'd like, so I'm sure they'd be much more comfortable with that than the current configuration, 100%.
And this is why we sometimes like getting groups like this together, is a lot of times there are solutions that maybe we're not familiar with, but could really meet a lot of different needs as well. This is more and more you're gonna see this kind of design in Rochester. In fact, the 6th Avenue down just on the edge of downtown is gonna have something very similar to this down there, so. Did I answer your question?
Yes,
Okay.
no, that,
My name is Libby, and I've driven kids on the go in RNS transportation. And first of all, when we took 55 and alive, you're supposed to slow down to 20 miles an hour, and they don't. First thing I think you could do is make a bright flashing light of that 20. The other thing that was well done is up at Overland, where they have not a speed bump, but a raised sidewalk for the kids to cross at the light, and it works really well. What you did really wrong was on 65th Street to go to Dakota, because the traffic is so horrendous with the parents dropping the kids off and the buses trying to get out. It's a real hazard just having one lane. So I think that's a real concern when we're by our schools, that you do have a turn lane and a light or whatever, because the traffic can really be bad. But again, we want it to be safe, but somehow you're gonna have to retrain these people as far as 20 miles an hour and to slow down.
I love this point, and I'm gonna turn around and ask you a question on this one too, because you specifically pointed out what's going on up at Overland, and that would be referred to as a raised crosswalk or a tabletop crossing. Do you have to tell people to slow down going over that?
No.
And here's the thing, this is, and I think this gets to the point. Are there designs that do a better job of slowing down traffic than people, just relying on people to do the right thing?
Yes.
And thank you for, and that's part of what we're trying to say the future of Elton Hills should be, is let's design it in a way that drivers drive responsibly, because the road makes them drive responsibly. I love those tabletop crossings, and my saying for those is people never speed over them twice. Other questions? I think we're one in the back. Good to see you, my friend. It's been a while.
Well, I'm getting old.
We are all aging at a rate of 1 year per year.
So I changed my motorcycle to a bicycle about 5 years ago, and I'm doing about 800 miles around on city streets and bike paths. And the one thing about Elton Hills that would concern me is you're taking away the north side parking. I don't know if you can take those 4 lanes and make one left-hand turn and split the other one and make it a north-south bike lane. I don't ride that, so, because I live in the southeast, the better part of town. The thing on schools, I'm a 19-year school crossing guard, and the reason why most kids, and I cross where I should get 40, 50 kids, the reason why kids mostly don't cross is stranger danger, Jacob Weatherly. Parents are just afraid to have their kids walk to school. And it's perfectly safe, but that's parents. Anyway, I hope you come up with a good solution on what it, and a lot of the problems we're talking about here, something that's going unsaid is the police are not doing a very good job. I get about 80 to 100 stop sign runs every year. And I'm talking 35, 40 miles, 50 miles an hour. Nobody's ever in danger because nobody's stupid enough to walk out into that street until all the cars are stopped. But that's the main reason why kids aren't going back and forth to school.
And thank you for those points. And I think that, one thing that when it comes to enforcement is a very effective mechanism when it's going on. And as soon as the enforcement goes away, it's harder to do that. And that's why sometimes having the right design that really slows down vehicles is helpful as well. So having worked with the police department for a number of years, I mean, it's never a deliberate attempt to be negligent in addressing these things, but it's just a numbers game that it's hard to have effective enforcement for 120,000 people that just want to push the rules just a little.
A lot.
Other questions?
Can I add on to that?
Oh, thank you. Yes, let's please.
I wanted to add on to that too, because, you know, I work very closely with my city teammate colleagues in the police department, and I appreciate the hard work that they do, but I don't speak for them, and I'm not in charge of them. So, to your point about enforcement, I don't really have much of a response, but I will say, my job as a city traffic engineer, I view as helping to design streets that don't need babysitters. Right? We can slow people down through good design and not just post a person out there to pull people over all the time.
My name is Randy, my wife and I are retired. We get out on our bikes fairly frequently. We're on recumbent trike, so we do some pretty large loops. Currently, we wouldn't dare go on Elton Hills the way it's configured right now. And so some of the things that we have up on the screen about city design, we're really happy to see those things going. I guess a question I'd have, Elton Hills is probably a tough project. Is there any potential of doing roundabouts at various locations there that would alleviate some of those, provide the left turn type of things?
So with the traffic study that we're doing, you know, I mentioned West River Parkway is being reviewed for intersection improvements. There's two other intersections that we're looking at 9th Avenue, and then also over by Elton Hills Elementary, between 14th and 15th Avenue, there's currently a traffic signal at 14th. So we're looking at, potentially could that work better at 15th Avenue instead? And that's something that we're wanting to get public feedback on as well. But those three intersections, we're doing intersection control evaluations for all three of those. And so at all three of those locations, a roundabout is part of the consideration for the future. So at West River Parkway, you know, we do have the funding for 2027. The other two, not necessarily have the funding, but it could come forward as a later project. I can tell you that traffic signal by Elton Hills at 14th Avenue, it is very old traffic signal.
Yeah.
It needs to be replaced. We need to do something with it.
The other thing roundabouts do is slow down traffic.
Yep, they are very good traffic calming devices.
Yeah.
We used to live in Century Hills, and the one out there, very effective.
On Shannon Oaks Boulevard, or you're talking on
Yeah.
Viola Road?
Yeah, Viola,
Okay.
works well.
Other questions?
Oh,
Are you double dipping?
I am. When you do the resurfacing.
A little closer.
When you do the resurfacing, are you also making all the corners so that if you have to turn, you don't have to go into the, you know, go down the ramp here on a bicycle and then get into the lane to go up on the other side where they have, you know, that if they don't have the wide enough lane, you have to go into the traffic lane to turn. Are they fixing all of those when they resurface? You know what I mean?
I think I know what you mean, because the pedestrian curb ramps from the sidewalk, they point you into the middle of the intersection currently.
Yeah.
Yeah, the ramps in almost the entire Elton Hills neighborhood are very old and not ADA compliant. They all need to be replaced. So I mentioned briefly during my presentation that there is a separate project to come through and replace a lot of the ramps, the curb ramps.
Good.
So, yeah, we prefer the directional ramps than the radial, and certainly not the ones that just point straight to the middle of the intersection.
And if you're on a tricycle or a tandem, you can't do them.
Or a popular cargo bike, they're very difficult too.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm Brett Ospey. I've spent a lot of my life on Elton Hills Drive, went to Hoover. My mom taught at Elton Hills. Sent our daughter to Elton Hills. Oh, sorry. Hoover, yeah. I just wanted to say I greatly appreciate this outreach effort that you're doing. And I want to know, are there going to be more of these? Are you going to target some different audiences? Because when this happened before, there was just an incredible amount of misinformation, and I don't think the real explanations the real data, the real even community interaction had a chance to flourish.
So first of all, speaking as a dad, I totally feel you when you mixed up the schools. Who wants to take that?
Since our 2016 recommendation, we've come a long way in terms of public engagement. There will be another neighborhood meeting, and then there's going to be the study session where people can learn more. If you want to provide feedback to me in the meantime, I'm requesting people email me, traffic@rochestermn.gov. I'm truly collecting feedback right now before we come up with our recommendation to City Council. I started meeting with Rochester Public Schools. I've reached out to the Lutheran School to talk with them, to get their feedback about what's important to them on this corridor. I know that after 2019, it actually spurred the creation of a neighborhood association in this neighborhood. I don't know how active it is, but I'll certainly be trying to reach out to them as well. But yeah, any other suggestions for specific people or groups that I should talk to, I'd love to hear it.
One question here, any other questions?
Sure.
Oh, here.
Name is Dick. I live on Elton Hills Drive. I've been there for 57 years. I rode a bike on it for 20-some years to work. Is there going to be any difference in vehicle traffic on there as far as truck limits and et cetera? As you go forth? I got a series of questions.
Well, why don't you get them all out and then we'll let the experts answer them.
Is there going to be any width changes on the drive, street at all? Are you going to do anything with the curves or anything? And speed changes. At one time, we had to go through a big fight to keep the speed at 30 miles an hour because they wanted to move it to 40.
Ooh.
And the other thing, how much variance do you have through the year as far as flow of traffic as you go through the winter months to the summer months, and both in bicycles and cars? And if you put bicycles on one side and you have cars parked there, it's just going to give me one more thing when I back up my driveway. I gotta look beyond the car to see the bicycle coming down, which is kind of tough even now to see the bicycles that are coming alongside of a parked car when they're riding down the street.
Potpourri.
If I miss one of those, you'll have to remind me. So I think you asked about truck traffic. So Elton Hills Drive is not a truck route. We're not going to make it a truck route.
Okay. Because one time they tried to.
Yeah. It's not, and if you enter 19th Street, like near Valley High, I know there's a big sign that says trucks over 10,000 pounds gross weight prohibited, and there's even a big orange plaque on it to really grab people's attention because they're not supposed to be going down that way. It is very hard to enforce.
Because before, we fought it, one, because the road depth wasn't deep enough to support trucks, the longevity of the road.
Yeah, we generally don't encourage a lot of through truck traffic, especially on residential streets like that. So no, we're not going to try to increase the amount of truck traffic. Speed limits, I think it was around 2019, the state legislature gave authority to cities to be able to set their own speed limits. So that's when we did citywide 25 unless posted otherwise. In the past, City Council would have to request a speed study from the Commissioner of Transportation. So then the state would actually come and do a speed study, and they would tell you what your new speed limit was going to be. And then you would have to change the signs to whatever they said. And sometimes, yes, they would try to raise the speed limit. So we didn't ask them to review our speeds very often because there was the risk of it potentially going up. Since we now have the authority to set our own speed limits, we have a speed limit policy. So on arterials like Elton Hills Drive and like we've seen on 65th Street, and we reconstructed Broadway, our policy on arterial streets would be 30 miles an hour. So that's what we would design it for, 30 mile per hour design speed, and that's what we would post it as. So we would keep the 30 mile per hour speed limit.
How about putting the bike lane next to the curb like you did on 4th Street Southwest?
So putting the bike lane next to the curb, like between the curb and the parked cars, and have the cars kind of floating out there, parked That is one of the options that was a potential cross-section in the traffic study. I can tell you we've not gotten great feedback on 4th Street Southwest, so I would be hesitant to recommend that as an option. I would probably much rather have the bike facility behind the curb. So it would still be behind the parked cars.
Yeah.
So similar to like Broadway, you know, it's behind the curb. That would be my
Like
preference.
the picture up there would be the optimum.
Yeah.
Right.
Certainly, yeah.
Because at one time, my wife and I, we rode a racing tandem, we had a barber behind with 2 kids in it, with the flag sticking up. But because we're in good shape, we could hold 30 miles an hour. So we weren't impeding traffic, but I can imagine other people.
To be able to raise the potential bike lane up like that and put it behind the curb, we would probably have to reduce the width of the road, which I don't know that we'll be able to achieve that with the amount of funding that we have available for our mill and overlay project. So there might be some sort of interim solution that we could recommend if that's the direction we decide to go, where we use pavement markings for now, and you know, the mill and overlay could probably last us 20 years. So by the time we finally do get around to a full reconstruct, that would be much more financially reachable. But yeah, it would, because I think one of your questions too was if we were going to change the width of the road. With the mill and overlay, we're just removing the pavement and putting it right back and repainting. There may be some other improvements that we focus on as far as like improving crosswalks and pedestrian refuge islands and curb extensions and things like that at select locations, keeping our budget in mind. But
The last time you redid the road was a lot of fun because they redid the manholes and stuff. And the drunk drivers would come down and knock down the barricades and drag them down the street.
yeah, we always follow up our mill and overlay projects with adjustments to the manholes, and that can definitely create some fun situations.
So at what point in time are we gonna get cars used to having bicycles? Cause I ride a lot on the street.
Not in our lifetime.
Cause I'm a former motorcycle rider and that's where I rode. I didn't ride on the sidewalk.
I believe you had a question. We'll do one last question, then we'll go into some closing comments.
Thanks. I'm Aaron. I'm also with We Bike Rochester, but coming from a perspective of I grew up just across Broadway, so right by Kellogg. So I'm very familiar with Elton Hills Drive. And one of the things I wonder, especially for those of you who spend a lot of time there, is not just people using the corridor of Elton Hills Drive, but the connections across the community. Like, do you think, of course the schools are a major one, but other destinations within Elton Hills neighborhood that people might walk, roll, bike to, if they didn't have to cross over Elton Hills? So not just riding along it, but actually crossing it.
You wanna take that, or?
Well, I guess, you bring up a good point with Broadway and how that's become a bicyclist destination, right? Like that feels like the blueprint of what, like, if it could always be like that, that'd be pretty cool, right? As for Elton Hills, like our little pocket of neighborhoods, I think about the businesses up here. So I'm selfish, you know, I can, you know, bike to work, but I can also bike to one of my favorite coffee shops, Novios. You know, I can bike to great tacos down at Corona's. You know, you can bike to Charlie's and play bingo on Saturday. So there's a lot that connects. You can keep going down to Costco and then not have any way to carry your groceries home. You know, so it is like, again, a very unique corridor that connects a lot of really cool, unique businesses. And I think it helps that growth too. I think of Pole's Beer House, and you know, you look out there and there's a good 5-6 bikes out there. You know, it's kind of become a destination for different clubs out there too. So that's what I see, you know, just on a day-to-day basis, how many people are, you know, living, playing, and, you know, staying active on it.
Would you all thank our panelists for being here? And a couple of announcements. Again, this is a program put on by We Bike Rochester and the Bicycle Alliance of Minnesota, and it is our goal to be in the community doing these kinds of things. not necessarily pushing a particular solution, but trying to get good information out there where sometimes good information does not exist. So please be an ambassador and point people towards the recording of this, which will be available before too long. If you're interested in these kind of activities, we're always looking for volunteers with Bike MN and We Bike Rochester. You can reach out to any one of us or find us online. Just wanted to highlight some of the different events that we have coming up. The Bicycle Alliance of Minnesota puts on a multi-day ride that has hotel or camping options, and this year it's going to be August 13th to the 16th in the Detroit Lakes area. Gives you the opportunity to bike through some of our most beautiful lakes country in Minnesota. It's called BAM, and it's available now. That ride does tend to fill up, so if that's something that you're interested in, you can look into it. We are proud to be hiring a halftime coordinator in southeastern Minnesota to specifically help put on events like this and engage with the community. That posting is currently live, and if you know somebody that might be interested, feel free to share it. The We Bike Rochester will be partnering with Earth Fest, which is happening on May 2nd. And in addition to the tabling there, the Earth Fest is going to be sponsoring a number of community rides, which will be starting up here in the next month or so. And finally, what's become one of the largest bicycle events in southeastern Minnesota, the Med City Meander, is back for year 3. It's always the Saturday of Memorial Weekend. That's May 23rd this year. We would love to have you involved as a rider or a volunteer. All this information can be found on We Bike Rochester's website or social media channels. Once again, thank you for the time, for being here. We hope you found this educational. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.